This video is not about hate, it's about misunderstanding. When something terrible happens to someone from the Northeast, the country reacts for a moment and then moves on. But for many people from the Northeast, these moments are not news. They are memories. Memories of being asked where we are really from, of being treated like visitors in our own country. Most people don't mean harm, but ignorance, repeated for years, becomes something far more dangerous. So today I want to talk about the things India still gets wrong about the Northeast. Not to accuse, but to finally understand. Before we begin, one thing needs to be clear. This is not about Mainland versus Northeast. This is about blind spots. And blind spots exist even in good people. Point one culture. The Northeast is not one place. It is 8 states, hundreds of communities, different histories, languages, food, and beliefs. Treating it as one culture is like calling all of Europe one country. When diversity is flattened, people disappear. Point 2, faces and belonging. Facial features are not nationality. Being asked, are you Chinese or are you from outside India, may sound harmless, but when you hear it your entire life, it quietly tells you one thing. You don't belong here. Belonging is not something a passport alone gives you. And the slurs, chinky, chow mein, momo, are often dismissed as jokes. But harm doesn't depend on who says it or how casually it's spoken. Ignorance doesn't become harmless just because it comes from everyday places. Point 3, English is not the same as privilege. Many from the Northeast speak English fluently, not because of privilege, but because it became the only neutral bridge between communities. Fluency doesn't always mean advantage. Sometimes it simply means adaptation. And when someone from the Northeast doesn't speak Hindi fluently, especially in metro cities, it isn't a failure. Language is learned through exposure, not loyalty. Across the Northeast, people from other parts of India live, work, and build lives without speaking local languages. They are not judged for it. They are accommodated. Respect should travel both ways. Point 4, tribal. Tribal does not mean primitive. It means community-led. It means shared responsibility. It means living with the land, not over it. Long before sustainability became a global slogan, many communities in the Northeast were already practicing it. Villages where forests are protected not by laws alone, but by collective agreement. Communities where water sources are guarded because everyone depends on them. Places where waste is managed locally because the land is not seen as disposable. In parts of the Northeast, villages have taken responsibility for cleanliness, conservation, and order without waiting for outside enforcement. Even everyday habits, respecting shared spaces, protecting common resources, come from a strong sense of collective accountability. Calling these systems backward isn't an assessment of reality. It's a misunderstanding of what progress actually looks like. Point 5, food is not a test of belonging. Food habits are often treated as a measure of culture. What people from the Northeast eat is questioned, judged, or mocked, sometimes openly, sometimes as jokes. Why do you eat that? How can you eat this? That's not normal. But food is not shock value. It is geography, it is climate, it is history. In many parts of the Northeast, people eat what the land provides, what seasons allow, what communities have eaten for generations. Calling these habits strange or inferior is not curiosity. It is discomfort with difference. And when people stop explaining their food, it's not because they're ashamed of it. It's because they're tired of having their identity treated like something that needs justification. Point 6, culture is not the same as costume. Festivals are not performances. They are memory. They are identity. They are history passed down when textbooks forgot to include it. But culture isn't expressed only on festival days. It's also in how people dress, in how they wear their traditions into modern cities. When people from the Northeast dress differently, in campuses, offices, streets, it often attracts comments, stares, or jokes. Why are you dressed like that? Isn't that too much? That's not very Indian. But clothing is not rebellion. It is expression. Traditional dress is not a costume. Modern dress is not imitation. Both are ways of carrying identity forward, reducing culture to something acceptable only on stages, festivals, or tourist posters erases how people actually live it. Culture is not entertainment. It is continuity. The hard truth: most discrimination doesn't come from hatred. It comes from ignorance that was never questioned. And when ignorance goes unchecked for decades, it stops being harmless. Pattern, not isolated moments. When incidents happen, whether in Dehradun or elsewhere, we debate, we argue, and then we scroll past. But for many from the Northeast, these moments are not isolated. They fit into a pattern that never really ended. The names change, the places change. Richard Lloyd Tom, Nito Tanya, Angel Chakma. Different years, different circumstances, different headlines, but the same discomfort, the same distance, the same forgetting. After incidents like these, the response did not stop at outrage. Committees were formed, recommendations were made, laws were examined and strengthened. The Bisbarua Committee, set up after these incidents, acknowledged something important: that discrimination against people from the Northeast was not incidental. It was systemic. The intent to protect existed. The frameworks improved, but laws can only go so far, because the hardest thing to regulate is not behavior, it's perception. Why this matters to every Indian? This is not a Northeast issue. It is an Indian issue, because a country is not held together by geography. It is held together by dignity, and dignity begins with being seen as equal. This video wasn't made to make anyone uncomfortable. It was made so fewer people have to feel invisible. Understanding doesn't require agreement, only empathy. And maybe the next time you meet someone from the Northeast, you won't ask where they are really from, you'll just listen.